New York's Twin Towers collapsed in September of 2001. I've been a resident of Harlem, New York for approximately 9 months. Prior to that, I'd spent 5 years commuting daily to Harlem City College through the World Trade Center, through the tower where a PATH train station was located. In a long letter to a friend I hadn't been in contact with for many years before this event, I wrote, "I don't feel like I have a reference point for this in my own life. At a vigil last week, it seemed impossible to find a common note, a common voice. People seemed lost, unable to find solace in the hymns, folk songs, and national anthems that have meant so much to other generations. Those songs and chants just don't seem the appropriate fit." Now, mind you, post-9/11 New York, like many other cities, was, forgive the cliche, a flurry of community activity. Reconnections with friends, readings, vigils, newspaper reports, and specials with remarkably produced graphics and music themes, which I'm sure is happening now in the coverage of Haiti. I don't have a TV, but I have a friend who works at CNN who does these, the headline designs things. Fundraisers, funerals, and eventually protests and marches against what would happen in Iraq, against the future that some were creating in that moment. I reference this event, however, along with my response to it, not because of the tragedy and terror of it all, nor the nightmarish actions cooked up as consequences, but rather because of the struggle in that moment and in the many that followed to find forms that connect with what Joan Retallack describes as the unprecedented character of one's times. Though I participated in many of the readings and protests, I found it difficult to find, and by find I mean create here, a form. Forms that might accommodate, contend with the complex reality of those events and experiences. I began a sequence of dueling, diverging haiku called Swarms of Bees in High Court that focused on Harlem during and post the event, rather than directly on the towers or the neighborhood of the towers or on the rhetoric coming out of Washington and anti-Washington. I chose this focus because I was interested in investigating synchronic events across space rather than 9/11 as a localized diachronic event. It struck me that discussion of, reflections on, reports about the tragedy were somewhat limited, in that they described and categorized events in terms of a clearly defined geographical space, and the space seemed bound to a few blocks, though the inhabitants of the neighborhood covered a broader geographical area. The space, the event, and its inhabitants are placed in a bubble of terror that is seen in journalistic accounts and in many creative accounts as simultaneously distinct from Upper Manhattan and much of the outer boroughs and other spaces, and to be a model of what could happen anywhere in the U.S. That's a theory of events as isolated rather than as relational. And this strikes me as dangerous ground on which to construct a theory of the other and of self. I want instead a poetry that wakes me from the sleep of a poorly made self and cheaply constructed other, a poetry of relations. I tried in Swarms of Bees, language drawn from myriad vocabularies, b-ball, the law, da-da-da, and that's all I'll say about it. And then, yeah. So I guess I'll read some of that and then tell you a little bit about the other projects and then be quiet and have some more wine. This is, this is a piece that will be finished, we hope, by the end of May. And the thing that I'm most grateful for is that Belladonna Press and Futurepoem are collaboratively publishing the book. And they haven't done a collaboration, so I'm kind of honored that the two of them, and I love both of the presses, so it's, I'm very grateful. Nocturne. As always, there is our black robe. Its tock-tock clocks our gates and gravel. As always, there is, was, and will be, are our perennial knots. Insomnia. Beside her he lies curled, sleeping apostrophe, possession, and mission accomplished. Again to the sweat. Now sleep, but not for her. Sleepless eyes like stagnant moons, saltiness, then this thirst for ice. And another night's gradations of darkness become the sheep counted. And another night's darknesses like tar, like silt, like steel wool coil along the screen's narrow field of light. She wants to shout into the pastoral sleep of his face. To shout at how sleep absents him, dissolves him from and to himself. Pussy is condition. Al, ing, and and position, chromosomal, prepositional. Behind them, brackish water bangs through bathroom pipes, through the evening's TV tones, through his cask of sleep. She clicks the remote, coughs into the dark tree of her hands, swallows her voice back into the back dark spit of her throat, can running her finger like a hiss along his clavicle trip more than parenthetical affection. Full of sleep, his husk pulls closer. Catone and Catwoo meow meows under the closed bedroom door while she stares into the narrow 2 a.m. glares of her TV. Watches the way she once watched a boy's body too quick for caution and traffic signs parsed on asphalt. Neighborhood boy, corner boy, man to be, been, bones. Done and gone, what good is light on that? To want and not to ask.